jokes aside, Capcom really did a good job with the Resident Evil 3 Nemesis remake. And this is a WolfBitOdyssey review of the horrifically fun remake.
Well, let's leave no dead body unturned. The inception of the RE engine gave us a remarkable, bold, and unconventional game known as Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. It is a first-person Resident Evil game, but they didn't stop there. They remade Resident Evil 2 in such a big way. It is a faithful remake with amazing graphics, traditional survival horror staples, and the shooting controls are like taking a hot knife to butter. What comes next? Well,
Resident Evil 3 Nemesis is probably as good as it gets with the Resident Evil series. It's what the shooting should have been in Resident Evil 5 and 6. Why couldn't they do that then?
but what is RE3 Nemesis? Zombie outbreak? Tyrant called Nemesis? It's chasing Jill? There's a train? That's at minimal. RE3. What I'm getting at is, RE1 is iconic for the Spencer Mansion.
Barry! Where's Barry?
And RE2 is great because of the police station. But RE3 doesn't have a set location. We revisit the RPD police station.
Yes, it looks, sounds, and plays as good as Resident Evil 2 Remake, but does that warrant the purchase? You tell me.
For myself, it isn't about soft tweaks to the gameplay, or more breathtaking visuals. It is simply for the classic Resident Evil formula, built on the RE engine, and continuing the narrative of the Raccoon City trilogy.
I just had to see for myself if it was good or not. I wanted to see what they would do with Jill Valentine's character and narrative. I like what they did here, I really do. Though after beating Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, it makes me think it doesn't get better than this. Sure, they could do more. You would want more, that's the only thing. Just make more. But you gotta ask Capcom, where do you go from Resident Evil 3 Remake? Don't look at me, I don't know.
Then figure it out!
Capcom was faced with a similar question not too long ago, when they were trying to replicate the runaway perfection that is RE4. They needed to think fast.
Where do you go after Resident Evil 4?
Surprise, motherfucker!
I mean, it's a fun couch co-op game if you give it a chance. But we might need to maybe figure out how good Resident Evil 3 Nemesis Remake is. Okay, let's be perfectly clear. This game is all survival horror and little to no adventure game tropes. If you want adventure game tropes, go play Resident Evil 2. Now, believe me when I say the remake is much like the original, despite what you may think or been told. So, this new game has added some new difficulty settings, Nightmare and Inferno, to make you feel survival horror.
Although I believe hardcore is the right amount of difficulty, but unlike RE2, it has all kinds of unlockable weapons and gear. You can purchase an infinite handgun, an infinite full auto assault rifle, an infinite beam weapon, 2 extra hip pouches, coins to improve defense, attack, and recovery, not to mention a handbook to enhance the perfect dodge feature, and a rocket launcher if you feel so inclined.
Huh. Those attack coins could really make this knife super powerful. Not to mention the hot dogger.
My worst time was spent on Nightmare mode. I did it, I made it work, but I caved going into Nemesis's final form and got Chris Redfield's handbook. The handbook allows the dodge mechanic to be more forgiving when Nemesis isn't that forgiving. It would have taken me a whole day to defeat the final boss without the handbook. I wouldn't take these additional difficulties out of the game. They had me playing through this game at least 4 times and recording 30 hours of playtime.
I like RE3 because I like to go fast in my video games. Resident Evil 3 allows me to do this. So why the fuck do so many other video games like to control my fucking forward motion?
RE3 wants you to go fast, even when you don't much feel like it. Other games don't really reward you for speedrunning the game like Resident Evil does. RE2 Remake has all the puzzles and a lot of old adventure game tropes. There isn't anything wrong with the slow burn. Just when you pick up momentum, you are hit with a red light. Be it a walking and talking part, Mr. X popping in, a tight cutscene, or a new nuzzle to figure out. It's a whole puzzle that needs to be solved to reach the end of the Raccoon City Tanuki hole.
How do you solve Raccoon City in the Nemesis remake? Kill everything in your way.
Give my soul is for one beer.
Hiya, Leon. A little slow tonight, ain't it?
As powerful as these consoles are, they still need a little time to load the next area, the next cutscene, or the next scripted set piece. That's to avoid dropping a lame loading screen to not break the action, and Nemesis does a fine job at that. And without such adventure game tropes, the nightmare becomes incredibly real, to which he takes appropriate action with a firearm and squeezes the trigger.
Why is Capcom just stealing my shit? So the remake is not 100% like the original. They made changes.
Where's the clock tower area? Where's the city park area? Why don't I end up at some weird ass water purification place? This game makes reference to the clock tower in a document file. We do have a boss fight outside of it, but we don't quite walk inside the place. Cool.
Wait, RE3 has a comeback.
Okay.
But listen, the clock tower part was not that great. The city park was not that great. And Gravedigger was not that great. And Nemesis is only a dynamic threat. Before the train sequence in the original, and exactly like in the remake. Resident Evil 3 can be seen as a side story to the main series. A Resident Evil Gaiden, if you will. But why is that?
It's more personal for Jill Valentine, the master of unlocking, so it is smaller in scope.
This tracks because Resident Evil 3 was titled Biohazard Last Escape in Japan, meaning the Western release could have been titled Resident Evil Nemesis, not a numbered sequel to Resident Evil 2.
The company had many different Resident Evil projects going on all at once. Resident Evil 0 was being designed for the N64 at the time, but would later be developed for the GameCube. The idea to remake the original Resident Evil came to light when it was time to put an older Resident Evil title on the GameCube.
The remake would be as Shinji Mikami always wanted it to be. Prior to the remake, Shinji Mikami was head of Biohazard 1.9/2.1 project.
So that means in that time that Jill falls unconscious to the virus, Resident Evil 2 happens in that span until she begins to wake. That does make sense, but what is remarkable, in Raccoon City on that night, there is the Birkin monster, Mr. X, and Nemesis lurking around the same streets at the same time.
Okay, Dr. Birkin, Mr. X, and Nemesis walk into a bar. Nemesis absorbs Birkin and Mr. X and still fucking fails to kill the Jills out of Miss Valentine. Boom, punchline.
So let's go back into the development history of this game. The true Biohazard 3, headed by Hideki Kamiya, was eventually scrapped as it would directly follow the events of Resident Evil 2 with Hunk set on a cruise ship at sea. This storyline was replaced with a new idea, eventually changed to Biohazard 4 because it was far too ambitious and time-consuming. Higher company executives wanted a new game on the PlayStation 1 before the PlayStation 2 hit stores. Code Veronica wouldn't come out until 2000 on the Dreamcast, and Resident Evil 0 wouldn't come out until 2002.
From that, you take Biohazard 1.9/2.1 and officially turn it into Biohazard 3, Last Escape, or in the West, Resident Evil 3, Nemesis, making Shinji Mikami incredibly pissed.
More interesting, Jill Valentine was originally planned to be the main protagonist in Code Veronica, but for Biohazard 1.9/2.1, Mikami wanted an established character rather than an all-new protagonist. That meant Jill couldn't appear in Code Veronica. That's why it's a flimsy narrative element to why Jill hangs around in Raccoon City.
I had to say this. There was plans to have Resident Evil 2 on the Sega Saturn. All I can say is, Mikami tried. He tried.
So it's hard to nail down what is the original identity of Resident Evil 3. Capcom had no choice but to manage the identity crisis when it came to development time, keeping the Resident Evil brand alive in the public mind, and trying to manage all the production teams with their ongoing projects. But here we are 20 years later with a remake of that same mess of a sequel. Jill Valentine is quite damaged, and she has a big crazy wall obsessing over the incident. That tracks. Then suddenly a phantom in the shape of a powerful tyrant breaks into her apartment, busting down the only bare partition, leaving her crazy wall perfectly intact. Strangely enough, this phantom is after Jill. Nothing else matters to the phantom.
She might be damaged, but she is not broken. If it was a person with no military experience, they would break. Hard. This game is going strong at this point, but what gets me is Brad Vickers.
Jill quickly runs into Brad, and what I don't like is he is far too aloof and casual about a powerful tyrant program with some intelligence to only target STAR's personnel. Sure, he might be trying to keep it together for Jill's sake. I may not like it, but his baseline works. They've been through the same stuff. So finding another tyrant and a zombie outbreak, it's nothing he hasn't seen before. But Brad is not WolfBit, he is ZombieBit, and he will turn soon, so she has to abandon him. There is another run-in with Nemesis, but he's seemingly invulnerable to all conventional weapons. We have a Deus Ex Machina in the form of a soldier employed by Umbrella using a rocket launcher, the same type of rocket launcher used to kill a T-virus tyrant. One rocket was enough to incapacitate Nemesis for a good long while before he gets back up again.
He just needs to rest off those missiles. Taking notes from the non-deads from Martian Gothic. Those fuckers don't know how to stay dead. They even come back as fucking ghosts! But here lies the problem. Something I don't agree with.
The Umbrella soldier is Carlos, a cool, mild-mannered military expert who is calm under fire. In such a pandemic with all kinds of mass hysteria, this is what Carlos was trained for. So his baseline is on the nose, though zombies can be quite alarming. However, it's just something he can shrug off. But his baseline doesn't trigger at the sight of a large, powerful monster that survived having a pony car fall on top of it. He's even collected enough to whip out some name-calling without a tremor in his voice, treating Nemesis like some bar trash he needs to bounce to save Jill. He should be more freaked out by the sight of the tyrant, but nope, the game wants to simulate what is a very specific realism with him. So to keep the facade of an unshakable but kind-hearted soldier archetype.
Well, at least he did not do another game over one-liner like Leon and Chris.
Game over.
Game over. Wait, you know what? I wish he did. Game over.
Okay, so let's roll it back to the introduction of Carlos. After Nemesis is hit with a rocket, they just walk away from the kneeling Nemesis and don't even check to see if it's dead or not. The way the scene plays out, it seems like they had time to do a few more things before the area attracted hordes of zombies. But that's just a steady pace, staying on track. The writing is trying to be very formulaic and very solid, but there are cracks in the writing.
Everyone always has the right thing to say at the exact right moment they need to say it.
Even in the beginning, Jill is almost killed by Nemesis and then cut to...
It's like Arklay on steroids!
How about when Jill almost gets on a helicopter, rams a car into Nemesis, follows a bunch of stories, Nemesis has her but then cut to...
Well, you can thank your corporate overlords for that.
Last one. When she has to turn on the subway power station, has the Drain Deimos do weird things to her and almost kill her, then goes on to say...
Right. I think I know the building.
Really? Way to go, partner. One step ahead.
Not your partner.
Like, she's so quick to call Carlos over fucking fire blocking her path, but doesn't say fuck all about bugs doing weird ass shit to her. So she could turn on the power station for the subway.
Carlos, it's Jill. I've restored power to the subway.
And no freaking tremor in her voice or pregnant pauses, and still does not miss a beat with her morose attitude towards Carlos and his unit.
Okay.
Na 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 na. It's very B-movie-esque to have a live-action sequence and a corporation like Umbrella to be so transparent and fake with its advertisements. I like how Jill's apartment is right next to a liquor store. What is the game trying to say there? Why does Brad lead Jill straight to a pub? Is this Shaun of the Dead? It's very funny to have a sign drop that reads crazy right in front of Jill, as if saying the crazy just crashed down in Raccoon City. Good luck, Jill, you're an Amazon. I like how the donut shop can be perpetually playing the music track of the good ending of RE2. There's a wounded UBSC soldier named Murphy Seeker, voiced by Todd Herberkorn. Same voice for Keisuke Takahashi and Initial D.
That's one bullet he couldn't drift past.
I think the funniest thing is Mikhail's suicide vest. He just happens to keep it close. Like he honestly expects to make an explosive sign-off with a great one-liner.
I would like it better if the camera didn't pan to the bomb vest and Mikhail was wearing it the whole time, expecting to blow himself up at the drop of a hat.
He could have well pressed the button when he first met Jill if her attitude became too much.
It's Jill. Okay. Not your partner.
He just couldn't handle it.
Well, you can thank your corporate overlords for that. I know what a radio is.
I don't know if I could handle it.
I like how on the helicopter ride, Jill self-narrates her inner monologue.
It was greed. Human greed.
I get it. If she did this a few times prior to the self-narration at the end, she does not self-narrate her inner monologue ever until this point, so it all comes out of left field and I'm like, okay, yeah, human greed.
And there is already talks of remaking Code Veronica and Resident Evil 4, possibly even Resident Evil 0. If they are going to do that,
assign a rookie development team to create an entirely new Resident Evil game. Lock them in a game studio for 16 months and pressure them to make a game better than the remakes of Resident Evil 2 and 3 and see what they come up with. That's my review. I'm Mars Moosel, the Wolf disguised as a man.